Welcome to History Explained, where we illuminate the past to better understand our present. I'm your guide to your daily journey through the past to empower the future. Today is Friday, July 25, 2025. As we do every Friday, we're exploring a significant economic milestone that shaped the development of our modern financial system. Today, we turn our attention to the creation of OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, established on September 14, 1960, in Baghdad, Iraq. This landmark agreement fundamentally transformed global energy markets and shifted economic power from Western oil companies to oil-producing nations. What makes OPEC's creation particularly significant is how it represented a revolutionary assertion of sovereignty over natural resources by developing nations, challenging the dominance of major international oil companies and reshaping global economic relationships in ways that continue to influence world affairs today. So let's explore this pivotal economic milestone, examining the conditions that led to OPEC's formation, its evolution as a global economic force, and its lasting impact on international energy and financial markets. OPEC emerged from the frustrations of oil-producing nations with the pricing policies of major international oil companies, known as the Seven Sisters. These companies, including Exxon, Shell, and BP, had controlled oil production, refining, and marketing since the early 20th century, setting prices and production levels with little input from host governments. The immediate catalyst came in August 1960 when major oil companies unilaterally reduced the posted price of crude oil without consulting producing countries. This price cut directly reduced government revenues in oil-dependent nations, prompting urgent calls for coordinated action. Venezuela's oil minister Juan Pablo Pérez Alfonso and Saudi Arabia's oil minister Abdullah al-Tariki had been discussing the need for cooperation among oil producers. The August price cuts provided the perfect opportunity to transform these discussions into concrete action. The founding meeting in Baghdad brought together representatives from Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. Despite significant political differences between these nations, they shared common interests in gaining greater control over their oil resources and maximizing revenues from petroleum exports. OPEC's original objectives were modest: to coordinate petroleum policies among member countries and ensure stable oil prices that would provide reasonable returns to producing nations. The organization initially focused on preventing further unilateral price cuts by oil companies rather than actively controlling global markets. Throughout the 1960s, OPEC's influence remained limited as major oil companies continued to dominate the industry. However, the organization gradually gained members, including Libya, Algeria, Nigeria, Ecuador, and others, expanding its geographic reach and collective bargaining power. The turning point came during the 1970s when a series of political and economic events dramatically increased OPEC's leverage. The 1973 Arab-Israeli War prompted Arab OPEC members to impose an oil embargo against countries supporting Israel, demonstrating the organization's potential to influence global politics through energy policy. The embargo quadrupled oil prices virtually overnight, from approximately $3 per barrel to over $12 per barrel, shocking the global economy and triggering the first major oil crisis. This action established OPEC as a dominant force in international affairs and demonstrated how energy resources could be wielded as geopolitical weapons. The 1979 Iranian Revolution and subsequent Iran-Iraq War created another oil shortage that doubled prices again, reinforcing OPEC's market power. By 1980, oil prices had risen from their pre-1973 levels of around $3 per barrel to over $35 per barrel, representing more than a tenfold increase in just 7 years. These price increases transferred enormous wealth from oil-consuming nations to OPEC members, creating what economists call petrodollars, the surplus revenues that oil producers earned from high prices. This wealth transfer reshaped global financial flows and contributed to debt crises in developing countries that borrowed heavily when oil revenues were high. OPEC's success also demonstrated the potential power of commodity cartels and inspired similar attempts at cooperation among other raw material exporters. However, few other commodities proved as suitable for cartel control as oil, which has limited substitutes and faces relatively inelastic demand in the short term. The organization faced significant challenges during the 1980s as high prices encouraged conservation efforts and development of alternative energy sources. The entry of non-OPEC producers like the North Sea and Alaska diluted the organization's market share and pricing power. Internal disagreements over production quotas also weakened OPEC's effectiveness. Member countries frequently exceeded their assigned production limits, particularly when they needed additional revenues to finance domestic spending or military conflicts. These quota violations undermined collective discipline and price stability. The 1990s brought new challenges as the collapse of the Soviet Union increased global oil supplies while economic growth in major consuming countries remained modest. OPEC struggled to maintain prices above $20 per barrel as oversupply conditions persisted throughout much of the decade. However, the 2000s marked a resurgence of OPEC's influence as rapidly growing economies in China and India dramatically increased global oil demand. Combined with production disruptions in several member countries, this demand growth enabled OPEC to regain significant pricing power and push oil prices to record levels above $140 per barrel in 2008. The 2010s brought new challenges with the development of unconventional oil production, particularly shale oil in the United States. This technological revolution enabled America to dramatically increase domestic production, reducing imports and weakening OPEC's market position. Today, OPEC continues to play a significant role in global energy markets, though its influence has diminished compared to the 1970s. The organization now coordinates with other major producers, including Russia, in an arrangement known as OPEC+, which attempts to manage global oil supplies and prices. OPEC's creation represented a fundamental shift in the relationship between developed and developing nations, demonstrating how control over natural resources could provide economic leverage to countries that had previously been marginalized in international affairs. This lesson influenced other resource-rich nations and contributed to broader movements for economic sovereignty in the developing world. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of OPEC's creation and evolution. Tomorrow, we'll be back with our military history episode where we'll be examining the Battle of Gettysburg and its decisive role in the American Civil War. If you enjoyed this journey through history, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts on how OPEC continues to influence modern energy markets and global economics. Until next time, I'm your guide for History Explained, where we believe that understanding yesterday is the key to navigating tomorrow.